solitary confinement in a rat-infested D.C. jail. This isn't even a federal prison where these January 6 people are. It's a city jail. It's one of the most disgusting in the country. So that's way, way over the top. But it was never more than that. It was not the Civil War. No one found any weapons other than the Capitol Hill police who shot an innocent protester. So there was no leadership per se. There was plenty of evidence, and these are hard facts. We can get into speculation. Plenty of evidence. There were FBI agents provocateurs in the crowd. That the FBI seated the crowd with people, like "I love Trump" banners and stuff like that. But they were there to egg people on. Donald Trump asked Nancy Pelosi, because D.C. is a city, it's not a state, but it's actually run by the Congress. It's run by the Congress. So Trump asked Nancy Pelosi to put the National Guard around the Capitol. He knew there was going to be a demonstration. He didn't know he said, "Why don't you put the National Guard up there just to protect it?" But Nancy Pelosi said no. Nancy Pelosi is the head of the Capitol Hill police force. She's not the chief of police, but she's Speaker of the House. So she was the head of the police force. She did not give them a heads up that this was coming. So you got government agents in the crowd, National Guard denied, Capitol Hill police not alerted. It starts to look like they kind of were, if they didn't plan the whole thing, they were going to use it. They knew they were basically seeding it, making sure it turned into something much worse than it needed to be. And if you notice, the next day, Nancy Pelosi and Eric Swalwell and all the Democratic leadership were yelling insurrection. And they used the word insurrection, which shows you how thought out this whole thing was. Because what'd they do? Read Section 3 of the 14th Amendment before they went to bed the night before? No, they knew they set up an insurrection. They had the word ready to go, and everyone's like, insurrection? I don't know. What does that mean? But the word was chosen purposely because they knew it fit the Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. So this whole thing was planned from the start. So anyway, so why now?
In this interview with Jim Rickards, several key points are raised regarding the events of January 6th, legal implications, and potential electoral consequences. Rickards argues that the characterization of the events as an insurrection is questionable, given the lack of due process and evidence. He suggests that there were government agents provoking the crowd and highlights Trump's attempt to request National Guard protection, which was denied by Nancy Pelosi. Rickards questions whether Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which disqualifies individuals from running for office if they have engaged in insurrection, applies to the president. He criticizes the handling of the situation by various states, including Colorado, and emphasizes the potential impact on not just the presidential race but also down-ballot races. Rickards concludes by highlighting the legal complexity of the issue and the potential precedent-setting nature of ongoing legal battles across multiple states. He expresses hope for intervention by the U.S. Supreme Court, but acknowledges the uncertainty surrounding the outcome.
Why it's almost 3 years later? Why now? Well, we have an election because Section 3 talks about running for office. You're disqualified from running for office, so you need the election. And here we are, and and Donald Trump is the target. So, but my point is, so here are the issues. Number one. Was it an insurrection? As a lawyer, I would say no. But, okay, you can disagree with that. But there's never been a hearing or determination. There's no due process of law. Number two, was Trump involved? No. Trump asked for the National Guard. He was denied. Trump told his followers, hey, go up there, demonstrate, go march on the Capitol, but keep it peaceful. And then when it got out of control, he said, leave, just get out, wind it down. So he's hardly encouraging whatever it was, if it was a riot, he was hardly encouraging that. He's had no due process law. There's a serious legal question, Brian, as to whether Section 3, which I read earlier, even applies to the president of the United States, or running for president in this case. It specifically mentions, and I read the office, it specifically mentions senator, member of the House of Representatives, elector, which is different, that's not the president, or the vice president. So did the Congress in 1868, were they not smart enough to include the word president if they wanted that to be included? They mentioned all the other offices by name. So the fact that the president's not mentioned inferentially means it doesn't apply to the president. That would be a normal legal interpretation. And the president is not an officer is usually a subordinate position. Somebody in more senior authority appoints officers. You appoint, in the U.S., the president appoints the cabinet officers, assistant secretaries, deputy secretaries, agency heads, commissioners of the SEC, et cetera, almost all which go up to Congress for a hearing, and you need a 2/3 vote to approve that person for that office. Military generals, promotions to 3-star general, et cetera. You got to run it all through the Congress and get authorized by the Congress. That's not true with the president. The president gets elected. He's or she's the president. There's no hearing in the Senate. So, serious question about whether it applies to the president at all. Serious question about whether it was an insurrection. I would say no. Serious question about whether Trump encouraged it. I would say no. And so on. And yet the Supreme Court of Colorado just waves their hands and go, oh yeah, it was an insurrection and he's off the ballot. And they also came up with this theory that, I'm just sorry to go on, but I'm just trying to show how attenuated and extra legal this whole thing is. Because the last point is they claim that it's, that the Section 3 is self-executing, which means that you don't get due process of law. It's like I say insurrection, you're off the ballot. No, actually, the Congress actually passed a law. Let me get the date right. 1872, the Amnesty Act of 1872, and then another statute in 1898 where they said, here's how it applies. Like, yeah, okay, Section 3, here's how you do it. And that was not followed. So this whole thing is kangaroo court. It makes the United States look like Nicaragua, and Brazil, et cetera. But it's pending in about 14 states now. Everyone's like, oh, Colorado, you guys are off the well. No, this is in New York. It's in California, Michigan, Arizona, Nevada. These are key swing states, some of them. And then people say, oh, well, California's going to vote Democratic no matter what, so who cares if Trump's not on the ballot? And actually, that's true to that extent. California will vote for Democrat, but you have all the down ballot races. The entire House of Representatives, 1/3 of the Senate, governors, state legislatures, state initiatives, they're all on the ballot also. And if you take Trump off the ballot, Trump supporters go, okay, democracy's over, we're done, we're not even voting. You're going to lose all those other races also. And that could flip the House back to the Democrats. This has implications way beyond any single state. And one last legal point, Brian, lawyers, this is what's called a case of first impression, meaning, like I say, 102 years since the last case, and it was a little different on the facts. It was a member of the House of Representatives. When lawyers have a case of first impression, they got to work really hard. They kind of reason by analogy, etc. But once Colorado rules, when this comes to the Michigan Supreme Court or the Arizona Supreme Court, which it's in the process of doing, they'll look around and go, oh well, we've never had a case like this before, but look at what Colorado did. So there's our precedent. So we'll use that in Michigan or Arizona. And that's how some of these cases are decided. So this could affect a lot more states. Now we're counting on the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court, to just throw this whole thing out. It's all garbage for all the reasons I mentioned, but that hasn't happened yet. So